Welcome to the Everything podcast for creatives who do everything except pick one thing.
In this podcast, we talk to multi-passionate creatives, artists, writers, entrepreneurs, and innovators of all kinds about how they manage their many projects, what works for them, and the lessons they've learned along the way. We have conversations about unconventional careers and take a look into the creative minds that refuse to fit in a box.
New episodes every first Wednesday of the month. Welcome back to the Everything podcast. I'm so excited for our second interview today, and we're joined by a wonderful guest, Jess Barker. Jess is a fellow multi-passionate creative. She describes herself as a multifaceted creative wearing many hats: professional writer, editorial director, collage artist, fashion historian, sewer, and occasional designer of beautiful things. You might know her from her thought-provoking essays on Substack, where she recently shared a post that struck a chord with so many of us: the pressure to apologize every time we shift creative direction. That piece inspired today's conversation, and we're so excited to dive into it with her. So, hello, Jess, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi,
Do you want
Kelly.
to add something to that short introduction?
No, hi, Kelly. Hi, Maria. Thank you both so much for having me. You are both my people, my kind of people. So I'm just really excited to be here. I'm glad we connected. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. So yeah, just like Kelly was saying, your latest piece really struck a chord with us because I think we can all agree that there is a good amount of guilt that often comes with creative pivots, and so we're so excited to unpack the pressure, the pressures that come along with that with you today. So maybe if you have anything you want to add and share, something that you find relevant from your story that you want to share with our listeners, go ahead. The floor
Sure.
is yours.
Sure. I'll add a little more to the intro. So I live in the US outside Chicago. Yeah, you found me through my newsletter, and what I'm really exploring there is what it means to find like direction and fulfillment in all those passions and all that creativity. Um, so I think you kind of touched on this, Kelly, but before this newsletter, one of my big passion projects was jewelry. I had a jewelry blog, and that evolved pretty quickly into me designing like a fine jewelry collection and a brand. And you know how these things get out of hand.
We do.
um, and before that, I studied in college a mix of things: costume design, communications, media, some film and history. And then I went to graduate school and earned a master's in fashion history at NYU.
Oh, cool.
Um, I had some like scholarly research published, and I worked in a costume shop, and I thought maybe I'd want to work in museums or something. But that's where I discovered my love of writing, and I just assumed everybody loved it as much as I did, but apparently not. And yeah, I realized, wait, people can pay you to learn and write and just indulge your curiosity. That sounds fantastic. So that's what I've been doing professionally for quite a while. So I write um, professionally, and I've been with a marketing agency as a writer, and then a manager and at the director level. So I've actually been here for five and a half years.
Wow.
Oh,
Which,
yeah.
yeah, as like a chronic pivoter, it's kind of shocking.
Been a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and so now I tell people I'm like a work from home mom now. So I'm part-time and remote with my daughter who's turning 2 this week.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it's really like the best of everything. And yeah, and then in my spare time I do lots of creative things. So newsletter work, various like sewing projects, home decor, sometimes fine arts and collage, and I've like gotten into cooking. So a little bit of everything.
That is
Um,
so amazing. I feel like I need this to be like a mini series so I can just like live vicariously through all these activities.
yes, join me, join
Yeah.
me.
Like,
Honestly, it's
what's
like
Jess up to now?
it's
Yeah.
truly enough. And well, and I've also started getting back into film photography. So,
Yeah.
Kelly, I feel like we have so much to talk about.
Yes, we do.
That is so amazing. And I mean, I feel like that lends in so well as well with what we're going to talk about today as well. So, I mean, you just shifting so many different things, which may seem different, but I suppose there's like a common thread through it
Mhm.
all. Would you say that there is something that kind of like links all those things together, or not at all?
Yeah, I think it's taken me a long time to discovered that, and that's part of what I've been trying to figure out, like, through writing my newsletter too, is like, what is connecting everything? And I think, I don't know, I'm just so interested in creativity,
Mm.
like the creative
Mhm.
process,
Yeah.
like as a like an outsider studying, someone else's like design history work, and also as like a creative practitioner and a creative peer. So yeah, that's something I think that's a common thread, even though it's super general.
Yeah,
But
but I guess it is and it isn't. I don't know. What do you think, Kelly?
I was thinking the same. Like it is and it isn't. I think it might be general, but it's also unique on its own, I think. And
Yeah.
maybe we tend to like connect with the same people that have like the same like red thread, I guess.
Mhm.
So maybe that's why it feels general, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, that's actually a good one. I'm gonna have to like brew on that one for a while because it is more specific than we let on, I guess, because it's the art of creating, right? Which
Mhm.
has a lot of things to unpack on. So yeah, for sure. That'll give me food for thought. You wanna take it away on the questions?
All right, yeah. Let's go with the first one. All right, Jess.
Let's
Do
go.
you remember the first time you felt like you had to apologize for changing directions creatively or like professionally? Ooh.
Yes. Yes, I do. I will never forget. So there was a
Oh,
moment
wow.
Yeah.
in
It's like it
right.
had impact.
I'm saying you guys had some great questions for me. So yeah, so there was a moment in college where up until that point, school for me was very exploratory, and you're literally supposed to pick whatever interests you. And that's like a dream for, so many multi-passionate
Yeah.
people. And I know not everybody loves school, but I really, really thrived in it. And so that suited me. I always wanted to just take all the classes. So in undergrad, I was a design student, but I was also interested in history and research and some of the like nerdy academic stuff. So I had this grand idea and I pitched it to my advisor at the time, which is, instead of doing the next design like capstone project, could I do a design research project instead? It all
Mhm.
made so much sense to me. But she said, and I don't think she really liked me all the time, but she said something like, well, that's not what you're here to do. Like, if you
Oof.
don't want to do this, you shouldn't be here.
Oh,
And it was pretty brutal.
yeah.
And I just like I didn't think in that moment that I needed to apologize, but it was the first time that I really felt like my multidisciplinary outlook was unwelcome, which
Mm.
was kind of new for me, like having
Mhm.
always been in this environment where you're supposed to cross-pollinate and you're supposed to bring
Yeah.
Right.
all of your interests and mix them together, and
Mhm.
that's how new ideas emerge. So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe she's right." So that was only part of the impetus, but I did end up changing majors and I got to
Oh,
do my
wow.
project, and it was like so fun and so fulfilling, and but also kind of like a big shift in my life because I
Mhm.
stepped away from this type of environment that people didn't really step away from. And yeah, that was the first time I kind of realized, oh, not everybody loves a little pivot.
Yeah. So it had such an impact that you still like perfectly remember that
Yeah.
Yeah.
moment.
No, and it's so true, and I feel like sometimes, I guess it's kind of like a murky relationship with structure in a way because it's kind of like on the one hand, structure is necessary for us because otherwise we're all over the place. But then on the other hand, sometimes structure can really like chop our wings off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of a hate-love relationship
Yeah.
Yes.
with structure for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
I
okay, so
think I mean that was like really harsh. I can imagine you were like
yeah.
so excited and you
Yeah.
know like ready to roll, and then somebody's saying like, yeah, that's not what you're here for. Like, ouch. That
Yeah.
must have been really, yeah.
But
Can
I'm glad
imagine.
you didn't lose
Yeah.
your zest
Yeah.
about it, like it didn't take it away. You're like, okay, it's not for me, you know, this is not where I'm gonna thrive in this, but I'll thrive in this somewhere else, like
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of I stuck it to the man a little bit. And I think around that time I had a professor in a cognitive science class, and he was clearly super multi-passionate, and I remember talking to him because I was, a little bit lost and stuff, and he recommended this book, The Renaissance Soul, which I'm sure
Ooh,
you've
yes.
maybe heard of or read or absorbed. And that was like the first time somebody kind of handed me a resource and was like, "Hey,
mm,
having lots of interest, being a Renaissance person, it's a
Yeah.
thing." And I just remember like getting that book from, there's a bookstore next to like a sandwich shop that had milkshakes. So I had my little Oreo milkshake and my little book, and I'm reading this book, and I was like, I think I started like crying in this over this stupid Oreo milkshake, and I was like, wow, I feel seen. Like
Yeah.
this professor and this book, they're validating me, whereas this other experience is like as if I'm not worthy or I don't belong here. And so
Yeah.
the harshness was pretty quickly followed by like a feeling of maybe this is actually normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually so almost lucky as well, because I don't think anyone ever gave me any resources.
Oh no.
I think I just found them, like by
Yeah.
way of like, I don't know, research myself or something
Yeah.
like that. But definitely no university professor ever said, it's good and it's okay to explore many things and do many things at once. So that's actually like kudos to that teacher.
Yeah.
I know, the best. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was like a mixed bag of faculty, I guess.
Mixed bag of faculty.
We need more of the second one and not
Yeah,
the first.
for
Agreed.
sure. Especially because I think it's more common now as well. I
Yeah.
mean, I work a lot with like young people, like kids and teenagers, and I think it's not yet super clear to them that they have this as an option as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bit sad because you can tell that they'll expand in all directions if they could, but then
Yes.
people are already trying to kind of like point them in just one direction, and that can be really stressful for a kid.
Yeah. Been there.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've all been there.
Unfortunately.
Oh no. Okay, so second question. Why do you think we, especially creatives, feel the need to explain or justify a pivot? And how much of this pressure do you think is internal versus cultural or systemic? It's kind of a loaded question, but
Yes. Yes, and I love it, and I'm sure, like, every person's probably gonna have a different answer to it, and I think for me, like, I think it's a mix of both, because
Mhm.
as humans, we just all deeply want to be understood, and I'm sure there's some survival instinct to that, like, we feel safe, we feel valued, and we
yeah,
can find community versus being ostracized, and also, like, we all need to form those judgments of each other right away, because if a total stranger walks in to the room, we are looking for those pieces of information to get a sense of, okay, what do you do, who are you, how can I make some, add some logic to this chaos. So that's just, I think, instinctively how we process information, and so then we want to make, we want to play into that and make it work for us when we present ourselves. Um, so I think, and also as creatives and as artists, we might not even understand ourselves to that much of an extent, and so like we have this core need to be understood by other people. We don't really like always know what's going on, and it's kind of just a recipe for like utter confusion. And so when we make a pivot, whether that's like a totally new direction or even just a more minor project that feels like a big shift for us, it's very disruptive to that status quo in that system. And I think we feel that even if we don't like necessarily realize that it's kind of threatening our stability. People no longer know what to make of us. It's confusing. They say, they're talking to us about things that we were doing 2 years ago, and we're like, that's not who I am. You don't understand me. Like it's kind of destabilizing. And it's sort of self-imposed because we've thrown a wrench into it,
right.
and we've introduced this complexity, even though it's for good reason. But I think that's why, as people, and myself included, will sometimes put in a lot of fanfare about this pivot. Like, hey, here's what I'm doing now. Like, here's a big announcement. Here's a big rebrand. Or on the flip side, maybe we just kind of back away from the public sphere and we just don't tell anybody and we dodge the question. So, I think, yeah, I guess part of that is like the status quo of how humans relate to each other, and then also internal, because there's these efforts to make sure we're not way off track and make sure we can still stay connected and feel understood to whatever
Yeah,
degrees, which is why it's really nice to have people who get it.
yeah,
Like other
exactly.
super curious, creative, multi-passionate people, because then it's just so much more, you know like validating and safe feeling as a space when you can just walk in and be like, hey, I started this totally random thing. What do you think? And everybody's like, hell yeah, versus
Mhm.
staring at you like you have like three heads. Mm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Actually, that's so well put. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about, that component of like cognitive schemas almost that we use, right? Just to sort of make sense of the world. So to an extent, it is normal that we, have this expectation, right? To like organize, like, okay, Jess is the photographer, or Jess is this
Mhm.
or that, or this or that. And so it's confusing to always change that. But at the same time, we aren't boxes.
Mhm.
So I think society has made it so basically because it feels like our job is like what we are, right?
Ooh,
Yes.
That's
yeah.
what like people ask, like, what do you do? And it's not, it's even it's not work. It's like, what do you do? But we will answer with our job instead of like, what do you do? Well, I just, I
Mhm.
draw and I take photos. That's not what we're going to answer because
Yeah.
we know it's expected to tell people that this is my job. But yeah.
That's such a good point, and I have no idea what it was because too much information in one day, right? But, like, I read somewhere. Um, that changes based on your cultural standpoint, right? So, like, I think this was an article written by someone, and if it's you out there in the void of the internet, shout out to you. But, that just, like, their experience of being an American, but living in France, um I think it was a Substack piece, actually. I have to find it because it was really interesting, and she was saying something like, she didn't realize how much her identity was connected to her work as an American until she
Mhm.
moved to France, where they don't do that.
Okay, awesome.
And so that was really interesting as well. So it's not like we all have the same relationship with work,
Yeah,
Mhm.
culturally, even.
yeah.
And when I think about the States, I lived there for a couple of years growing up. Well, quite formative years. I was like, I don't know, I was like from age 2 to 7. So I mean, I guess I really
Mhm.
soaked that
Yeah.
in. Um, Especially academically, I must say, because I don't feel like I'm Portuguese at all academically. Very different um, mentality. And so it's interesting to see the idea of productivity changes based on which culture you belong to. I don't know. How would you say you experienced that in Belgium, Kelly?
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know, all Belgians want to hear. I think we have a very like thriving and hustling culture too.
Okay.
Over the last couple of years, like a lot of people are in burnout because
Mm.
Belgium has become like very chaotic and like a race to the top that we can't like nobody's keeping up with it. It's impossible to keep up.
Mm.
So yeah, we are very productive and like job. Yeah, so I don't like that. That's
Mm.
part of the reason I would love to maybe move to another country that hasn't got the same yeah rat race, I guess. Yeah.
And how about you, Jess?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the US, like, France dynamic because I occasionally at work will quote Emily in Paris, which
Oh,
is
that's
not
so
even a
funny.
show. I don't even really like the show, but there was a line about, like, the French
Mhm.
coworkers are, like, ribbing her for being such a workaholic, and
Mm.
Yeah.
they're like, "Emily, like, we" what is it? They say, like, "We work to live, not live to
Yeah,
work." And she's like, "What are you
exactly.
talking about?" And I totally embrace that mindset,
Mm.
like, um, you know, would it be super dreamy if I was able to do all the all the stuff that I enjoy, like costume design and
Mhm.
jewelry and all the literally sparkly things. Like, that would be fantastic. But I also love a paycheck and I love like a lifestyle and I love having a home and,
Mhm.
growing a family and like shopping and just existing and traveling.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, I've kind of let go of this idea that, like, my profession needs to fully encapsulate
Mm.
everything that I love is so impossible, like,
Yeah.
it's never gonna happen, and so I've tried to find, like, a more narrow kinda situation of, like, I love learning, I love research, I love solving problems, um, and that's something that I can, like, make work in a professional sense,
Mhm.
but I don't necessarily always use all of my other experiences. But then we'll sometimes get clients like, we had a client where they wanted me to write an article about this Marie Antoinette period drama and the costumes in that. And obviously they're like, "Yes, of course, Jess, you should write this because you know what you're talking about." And I
Right.
loved it. And so, these kind of things overlap occasionally, but yeah, that's how I live my
That's such a
you know
good point though of like it can be both, right? So it's like you can have the part that you monetize and that's still like within your interests and within your identity even, but then other things that are also your identity that you don't monetize, right? And so
Mhm.
like both things can exist to keep a balance. Otherwise it's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to, you know, have all of that, like everything you are and everything you want to be in your profession so tied to your identity, like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And it's also, dependent on other people, like
Yeah.
your boss or your employer. And I like to think of it as having a dream life, not necessarily a dream job. And if,
Mm.
I've heard of people who've had their dream jobs and then they get laid off, or
Yeah,
they get
exactly.
a different boss that they don't really
Mm.
click with, and
Mm.
the dynamic is all off. And so I kind of like having that degree of control where I'm in,
Mhm.
kind of all my eggs are not in a basket
One
that somebody
basket.
else is holding. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. That not in
yeah,
a basket someone else is holding. That's an even better point. Yeah. Ooh, and I like that as well of the dream life and not the dream job. That's I think we have lots to quote you on.
yeah. I think so too.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, I did write a piece on that for my newsletter, so it's only just
Uh-huh.
regurgitated.
Perfect.
Okay, well, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, we'll put all like links in the show notes. So
Oh yeah, exactly.
okay, question number 3. So yeah, you mentioned the apology reflex in your piece on Substack. How do you notice it showing up in yourself or others?
Ooh.
Yes. So, yeah, people and I think I wrote about this a little bit. Like, I just for some reason I noticed a handful of people in one short spurt of time who were saying
Mm.
like, "Oh, I'm sorry I haven't posted here in a while," or
Yeah.
"Is this weird that I'm making this shift?" And it's like this real sense of self-consciousness
Mhm.
and stress about making a shift and how we communicate that and present that. Um, so I think kind of like I mentioned there could either be that big fanfare about a pivot or just hiding in the bushes and hoping nobody knows what's going on. And I think it's especially something I notice for creative people who have either business oriented or business adjacent practices, which like I don't really consider myself like a super side hustler. It's more like a passion project thing that I've been doing. So I see people apologize because I think they feel that they need to keep up with that hustle and that rat race and the pace there. So, maybe they'll post on their like art business account, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been kind of quiet here." It's like, girlfriend, you were busy doing amazing things. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need to apologize to
Right.
your audience.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, I'm discontinuing this thing because I'm moving on. Um, and it's tough because I get it. Like, you have to say something. And I think people do feel awkward about those,
Mhm.
people are expecting this from me because I led them to believe this is
Mm.
what I was going to be presenting and providing, and now I'm like stopping or switching. How do
Mhm.
I grapple with that? I try not to do apologies unless I'm like genuinely apologizing for something, but I've also started believing more and more that like people don't care that much about
Yeah,
what
other
we're
people
doing.
do. That's true.
So funny, yeah.
Which, like, kind of hurts the ego, I'm sure, but,
Yeah.
like, you
No,
know
it's so funny you mentioned, like, apologizing to or you observe that apologizing to,
Mhm.
like, your readers or your fans or whatever it is, and I was immediately when I read that question in my head, I was thinking about, like, family and friends. It's so
Yeah,
funny, because I would be like, "I don't think anyone cares
yeah,
enough for me to apologize to them," like, no one is, like, you know but that's actually so true, you make it such a good point because I think there can be, like, really, really high expectations from audiences sometimes. Not that that's
mhm,
necessarily my case, I can't say that it is. But I guess if you're, like, super, I don't know, famous or viral or something like that, like, people get angry, like, is
mhm.
that a thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
They get angry.
I
I think
mean,
so.
yeah, it could be.
Like,
Yeah.
"Why aren't you giving me TikToks anymore about your
Yeah,
travel?"
yeah.
Like, would they actually do that? I don't know.
I mean, some people are quite judgmental, I've noticed. I mean, on the internet,
They
like maybe it's because it feels like we're anonymous, sort of,
Yeah.
that we can just say what we want to.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But that's actually yeah, that's actually such a good point. So feeling responsible for your audience as
yeah,
opposed to would you say that you've also observed that like on a more personal level, like people feeling the need to apologize or even you to like family or friends or like people, I don't know, acquaintances.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Probably. I feel like I'm lucky because I have really supportive
Mhm.
folks, but, I think it can be hard, like, I kind of had an idea for one of the next couple of questions you were gonna ask about, like, when you lose, like, your followers or audiences or kind of
Mhm.
sever ties,
Mm.
and I think maybe I'll just kinda go into my thought on that one because, you know,
Which one is that one? Which
it was
question is that?
Do you
tw
ever worry, I guess, about
yes.
losing people when
Yeah,
you
okay,
change
gotcha.
direction?
Yeah, like, so I think that is one of the tough things that, like, you could lose, followers or clients or
Mhm.
collaborators, and I think in my experience, it's mostly been losing friends,
Mm.
because if you step away from something that everybody else is still doing and they're probably gonna
Yeah.
keep doing it, then, it's not necessarily needing to apologize, but you do feel like you have to kind of explain yourself and you feel bad, and it's this awkward dynamic because it's like it's not you guys, I'm not abandoning you, it's just I'm moving on to this new
Mhm.
focus, and that people don't typically in mass follow you.
Right.
So I think that's been maybe one of the like weirder aspects of it.
Okay,
um
that's a good point. Yeah, because of course you would make social connections in every project you do, right?
mhm,
That makes perfect sense, and most people, or not most, but I guess people, will choose, to stay for long periods of time, and then it's almost like a fizzling out
mhm.
sometimes, where even if you try to keep, that relationship going, like it fizzles out. I don't know. Have you guys ever had, well, Jess, you've had that experience. Have you
Yeah,
ever had
yeah.
that experience, Kelly?
I mean that yeah, of course it does. I think sometimes it happens more naturally, but sometimes it doesn't.
Mm.
And I think I mean, it's like people also they take it personally as if you're not like you're just not choosing them anymore or something, but
Yeah.
it's about yourself, I guess. You're just not interested anymore in the thing that you were doing because we're multi-passionate.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I will say too, there are those, like, those gem people who will kind of pop up and be like, "Hey,
Mhm.
how's it going? Oh, I'm interested in this new thing you're doing. Tell me
Yeah.
about it." And,
Yeah.
those people are the people I try to, stay in touch with and keep around because, like, otherwise it's just, you move on from one project to the next, and then you're just, like, lonely, and that's
Yeah.
kinda sad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but
It
yeah.
is about like finding the people that follow you for you, not what
Mhm,
per se what
Ooh,
you're doing,
interesting.
but just the person who you are and the energy that you put out there.
Hmm.
That's what I'm trying to at least because I also struggle with like how to combine everything or whatever, but
Yeah.
people are like, it doesn't matter. They probably buy because of you and not the thing that you're selling per se. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I guess that even makes sense for friendships, I guess, because, you know, personally, it's always going to plateau for me if I'm friends with
Yeah.
someone who I can only sort of go deep with on one certain topic.
Yep.
Like it's always going to reach a limit, right? Like my
mhm,
closest friends or my best relationships are the ones where I can literally talk about anything, and we can
Yeah.
sort of like explore many, avenues of, whatever it is, thoughts, activities, adventures. Um, because that's me at my core. And so the other kinds of friendships will be more like either short-lived or specific, right? Just like, we have different friends for different things, right? So I guess
mhm.
it's that, but not the closer overall friends. I guess those have to be a little bit wacky as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
the crazy creatives. And yeah, and it's like if there are people in your life and if it's more of a personal connection, not a like transactional commercial connection, like if you feel like you have to apologize to them, maybe they're not your people. Like maybe they're
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
we're your people, you know?
Exactly. Where are you?
Yeah, we are here.
Okay, so next question. Yeah, we ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you talk about moving from expert mode to beginner mode again. What's been the hardest part of giving yourself permission to not be an expert?
Yeah, so I think in general I've noticed that if I start feeling like too much of an expert in something, then it
Mm.
means I'm stagnating. Like if
Ooh.
I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, or if I'm the only one who knows what's going on or something like that, then I look at that and think, okay, I'm in the wrong room. I'm not going to learn or grow or be challenged in a way that I need. So I like to kind of keep this default operating mode that, like, I'm always a few steps away of the level of expertise that I'm aiming for. Um, so for instance, with writing, I've been doing like academic writing and professional marketing writing for years, and I've gotten really good at certain formats and styles of doing that. And so there is a degree of like expertise there where I can train somebody or support somebody in their growth. But then there is a comfort zone and a bit of a rut that comes with that.
Mm.
Um, so more recently, I've been trying to push myself into total beginner mode with like more creative writing formats that I've never done before. And even that I swore I would never in a million years do. Like I'm the person who will be like, "Oh, I don't do creative writing,"
Yeah.
but I'm like, and if that's not like a limiting belief, I don't know what is. And so like pushing myself into that kind of territory, it's like super humbling and honestly quite intimidating, and it can feel kind of crummy at times because you sit and think, well, I'm good at some things, right? And I feel like I'm not very good at this new thing. And one of the most frustrating parts is just seeing how long it's going to take to get from where you are now to where you want to be when you step back into beginner mode. But I don't know. I think that if I'm not learning, I'm not really living. So I always try to like I don't know. I try to get comfortable with what it feels like to put yourself in a new space and pick something up that's new. And I think it can help to leapfrog between areas that you do have familiarity with. So for me, it's like writing. I'm not starting from actually square one,
Yeah.
so it's not a total shock. Um, Whereas like when I did ceramics, that was super hard, and I was mostly angry all of the time at the mush of clay that was not turning out as beautifully as I hoped. But,
Yeah.
everybody else was, like, in the same boat too, and I think, yeah, once you try new things over and over and over again, you realize, like, it's not that bad, and there is a learning curve, but, we can kinda get over it pretty quickly, so I think it's also better than being stuck in one place.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and I think also deciding what of that beginner work you might want to share with people versus what you want to keep to yourself, because if you don't feel that great about it and then you put it out there for validation, like you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of balancing that, like how much you share about what your pivot is looking like versus how much you kind of keep to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love if you're not learning, you're not living.
Yeah.
I feel like that's my life's motto.
Yes, right? Like, if my brain is not actively sparking over something interesting and, like, I don't know, all of us probably we can't chug along the
Yeah.
same way for too long. It's just
No,
how do you cope with that?
it's so true. I feel like it's also kind of a weird paradox for me where there are some things where I'm like slow and steady wins the race and I'll want to do
Yeah.
like the long haul, but not necessarily in terms of like work. Um like more in terms of like, I don't know, personal development or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm,
But then for work things, it's kind of like yeah, I wanna learn, and then if something interests me, I'll go down that rabbit hole, and then something else interests me, I'll go down that rabbit hole for sure. It's just the curiosity, it's almost like a weird kind of muscle where the more curiosity you have, the more curiosity you have.
yes,
Oh
It's
100%.
yes.
just it's kind of crazy, I think, almost.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
I
Okay.
feel for me like the curiosity, it's also in seasons, it feels like. There's
Ooh.
like seasons that I'm like, now I want to do everything. And then
Mhm.
whatever like comes my way, I'm like, oh no, I also want to do that.
Mhm.
But then I kind of go into like a winter season maybe and it slows down a bit. And then I'm like, okay, I'm okay right now. I don't need to learn all the new stuff and I'm just gonna be in my comfort zone and, chill a while, I guess.
I like that idea of like moving with the seasons. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the springtime, it's like
Yep.
everything. Like, I want to do that. I want to do that. Let's go there.
YOLO.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like, it's almost like you're reborn again, like quite literally.
Yeah, I am 100% with you. And sometimes when I'm in the midst of like the chaotic, like everything's happening season, I miss the dormancy and the
Yeah.
hibernation of just like, especially, I don't know about the two of you, but when I've been in between projects, like I finish
Mm,
one big thing and then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let myself chill and veg and I don't know, watch TV or like do one fun thing and actually relax because I rarely do anything like that. And so sometimes that can be really nice. But then yeah, when it gets all chaotic, it's like, this is great, but also,
yeah, no, super true. And then you just overwhelm yourself because no one's asking you to do that many
no,
things.
it's totally self-imposed and it's like
Yeah.
so crazy. It's like, what am I doing to myself?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, it's like an easy route to burnout, just like
Yeah.
completely self-inflicted burnout. Well
Oh
done.
yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not just me because yeah, I totally
Yeah.
sometimes it's like the world is just moving by at this normal pace and here I am like just burning myself to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think we, like, almost fool ourselves with it, though, because it's kind of like we're having fun, you
yeah,
know? So it's kind of
yeah.
like, "Ooh, I like this, and this is
Yeah.
not work. This is just for fun," and then you realize
Mhm.
you're, like, grinding, and you're like, "Oh god, maybe I
Yes.
need to slow down."
Actually, on that note, I just read this book called How to Not Always Be Working, and it's
Mm,
just on that kind of theme, which is like we are passionate and curious and always into something, and we
mhm.
have, we can't sit still. But the author, and I'll have to send you guys the information for the book 'cause I can't
Oh,
remember who
yes,
the author is,
please.
but kind of one of the premises is like you so work-related tasks can feel like work and they can feel like play. And some of them bring you income and some of them are just like your creative calling or your passion. And so one of the exercises that I still have to do because it would be really helpful is to write down like what feels to you like work and then what
Mm,
feels to you like rest. And,
interesting.
things
Huh.
can kind of overlap in weird ways like maybe making like for me making dinner at the end of the day kind of feels more like a rest activity, even though it technically is more of like a work activity, but I can shut my mind off and I can do something with my hands and that
Oh
feels
god,
more
same.
yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
more
Makes sense.
restful than like, sitting there like, my brain exploding and I'm trying to like
Yeah.
write things or
Mhm.
even reading, like, is supposed to be a relaxing activity, but I always pick up books that have to do with, like Kelly, you're nodding,
Learning.
it's like self-development and growth and
Yeah.
challenging your mind and your self-concept,
Yeah.
and it's like, that is actually work, and my husband, who I adore, he pointed this out to me, he's like, "You're reading this, like, magazine that's about, like, creative women, which is wonderful," and he's like, "That's not relaxing for you, like,
Yeah.
that's, like, stressing you out, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yes, it is, but it looks like it's supposed to be relaxing." So
Yeah.
anyways.
Oh,
Do you
I
guys
relate.
also
Yeah,
do
not all
this?
reading is relaxing. I've
No.
noticed that. I recently basically because I didn't know either, but then I read somewhere like I get tired after reading. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this possible? Like, shouldn't I be like more relaxed instead of like tired?
100%.
But yeah.
I don't know if you guys do this as well, but I certainly do, which is I read multiple books at the same
Oh
time.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
How can we not?
I don't even know. This maybe was just a rhetorical question because we all knew what the
Yeah.
answer was. But what I tend to do is I tend to always make sure that I'm reading like different kinds of books. So like one of them might be like prose or more poetic. The other one
Yeah.
might be more like learning, like personal development, whatever. And then one is just like a purely for the story. Because if I don't have a purely for the story, my mind is, and even with the purely for the story, let's be honest,
Yeah.
I have the tendency to just, like, underline, "Oh, this is great. Oh, I need to use this. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, 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 oh," and so, like, I have to stop myself from underlining everything, you know what I mean? Like, just read, lady.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so hard though, it is
Yeah, it
So
is.
so
hard.
hard.
It's
It's like
just
you
how our
can't
brains work.
yeah, like we can't appreciate like
Yeah.
beauty and art and like loveliness because we're like trying to also create it,
Yeah,
and bring it
Yeah.
into the world and it's yeah, it's
100%.
it's painful. Like when I did, enough theater stuff that then if I go see a show, it's like distracting because I'm constantly thinking about, well, how did they do that costume change? And I think I can see a little bit behind the scenes and,
Yeah.
how did they get that prop there? That then it's like, just enjoy the show. My
Yeah.
goodness. I can't do it.
Well
Yeah.
said. That's so well said. Well, I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not the only one. This
No,
is
Yeah.
no.
very validating for sure.
I'm sure a lot of people would be like nodding along, like, oh my god, this is me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay. Okay, another question.
Mhm.
Social media often rewards clarity and consistency. How do you navigate being multi-passionate in a world that wants to be niche?
Yes.
Gosh.
So, oh my goodness, social media. It's gotten so exhausting for that reason. Like the
Yeah.
algorithm and everybody's all stressed out about it. So, and the ads too. Like it's just,
Mhm.
it's a lot of noise. And so honestly, my approach, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I have just been trying to ignore it. Like I am hardly on social media anymore, which is kind of a bummer because then I miss out on the chance to like connect with actual human friends and
Yeah.
stuff. But I just try to tune that noise out. And if I do consume content, like more, more so on Substack, and I just try to make sure it's supporting and validating me in some way. So instead of like niche oriented hustle culture stuff, that it's, it's not making me feel bad, that it's more of like, like your podcast and, things like that, where it makes you feel validated and like, you know, helpful in some way, or maybe answering a question that you have. So I've obviously read a lot on Substack, and I'll always repost things that I like because it's comforting to know that there's a little feed of friendly voices out there that if I ever wanted to come back and just read through things again, I can return to that.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I think like as far as picking a niche, I've kind of similar to both of you, like I've tried to pick the multi-passionate niche as a niche because it totally is in its
It
own
is a
way.
niche, yeah. Mhm.
Which is funny because, you know, I don't know about you, but I didn't realize that that could even be possible. And then
Oh,
you
yeah.
start writing about and sharing about, and then you find more people who are in the same boat, and it's like so nice. Um, and so I think, yeah, having kind of, you have to like stick your flag in some ground, and so
Yeah. Mhm.
just picking the like multi-passionate weird creative person territory, like that feels better. Because if something else I read recently was like, I think it was about time management, and the premise was like, if you don't choose, if you don't make a choice, if you don't take an action, then like, you'll miss out on all the benefits of that. And so
Mhm.
I think, in one sense, like if you never pick a niche, if you never explore the internet, if you never show up, you'll miss out on opportunities to connect and meet people
Mhm.
and grow. So, being able to claim multi-passionate as kind of a niche is so nice because
It's
there
so
is space
nice.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but I mean, there are already 3 of us over here with
Yeah.
Yeah.
Substack newsletters about, being multi-passionate. And I'm surprised every day that I found like a new one. And I
Yes.
didn't realize
Same.
there were so many Substack
Yes.
newsletters about being multi-passionate.
I know. And it partly makes you think, oh gosh, I'm so unoriginal. But it's like, no, these
Yeah.
are my people. These are my
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
people. And I found too that like, I don't know, the more, like, the less I write
Mhm.
about like advice for people, because I kind of approach it from my marketing background, and that
Mhm.
type of writing is like articles that are clear and concise and listicles
Mhm.
and how to's and stuff. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just be a little more vulnerable, and what'll happen. And the more I kind of just share about like my struggles and my experiences,
Mhm.
the more people genuinely
Yeah.
respond. Like people will text me out of the blue and be like, oh, I
Mhm.
really needed to read that. That's great.
Mhm.
I'm like, meanwhile, I'm publishing it and thinking people are just going to think I'm crazy
Yeah.
or like, does this make any sense? But I go for it anyways. And yeah, I think like the more kind of vulnerable and authentic we can be, and I do think that having that as like an umbrella
Mhm.
niche does help make that feel more comfortable and make
Mhm.
that feel like that's okay. Um, because yeah, when people kind of show up online and they say, I'm here to talk about all the things, so that's what you can expect of me, like it's giving them like the kind of container that they need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
dabble and mess around, and then no one's
Mhm.
going to say like, why did you switch from this to
Mhm.
that? It's like, well, I told you that it
Yeah.
was going to be all over the
Yeah.
place, and you signed up, so that's on you.
You
Yeah.
signed up exactly.
Love that.
Mm. No, that's so true. And I mean, in the end, it's general, but it's also really specific because even just this, like, first Kelly and I connected
Yeah.
because we both have the word everything in our newsletter, and we were like, we should, connect on this, and then we started this podcast, and then we read your newsletter, and we're like, well, this is exactly what
Yeah.
I'm feeling, and so
Reader.
it's funny
Yay.
because it's general, but it's not like
Yeah.
we all have like a common thread as well.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe in a weird way, our common thread is also our shared experience of this kind of way of, going about our careers, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mhm.
yeah, and the struggles and the reality of it, because it also kind of sounds like it's playtime all the time, but it's not.
No. No.
Mhm.
I've been really struggling with that recently.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's so important to have these voices to kind of just, debunk the myths around it, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good niche. It's a great niche.
Yeah.
Well, that
It's the best niche there is.
Yes,
I couldn't have
agreed.
picked another one if I wanted to. I
Yeah.
mean, it would never stick.
I know, truly, and that's the kind of crazy thing. When I that what you said, Maria, about, like, the it seems like playtime, but it's kinda tough.
Mm.
Can I skip ahead a question to the
Yes,
one about
please do.
the
Yes,
pivot
just
party?
which question? Which one?
Um, the calling it a pivot party.
Oh,
So
right. Okay. Got it.
Okay, well, for the audience. So you call it a pivot party? What helps you stay playful instead of spiraling into guilt or self-doubt?
Yes, it's a good question. Yeah, and so in my head, so I was writing this piece and I love alliteration. And so I'm like,
Mm,
pivot party, that sounds fun. Even though Maria, like to your point, it's chaos. It feels like you feel like trash sometimes
yeah,
and you're like,
Yeah.
what am I doing with my life? There's a little existential crisis
Yeah.
everywhere
yeah.
all the time. And so I just feel like if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I
Mm.
definitely do both all the time with
Yeah.
all the, navigating all this stuff because it is very serious, like
Yeah.
your life purpose and your contribution to the world and
Mhm.
how you make money and what are you supposed to be doing and how can you build a
Mhm.
life that works. Like it is pretty heavy stuff, and so it is serious, but I think we don't always have to take it so seriously all the time. Like I try to be, and I don't know, it's not necessarily intentional, but I tend to be this, like, glass half full disposition, like, even in an overcompensating kind of way. Like,
Yeah.
when things are going terribly wrong, I'm always the person who's like, "Let me just bring some sparkle," or like, "I'll find the silver lining." Like, um, my husband and I, like, back in the day, we would be driving and stuck in traffic, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is a bummer." And I'm like, "We had to spend more time together. Like, look at this. This is so great, right?" And, I'm just absolutely masking my, like, frustration at the scenario,
Yeah.
but I do think it helps
Fake
though
it till you
because
make it. No,
exactly.
100%.
Like,
I
I
think we're
just
all that way. Yeah, I think
yeah.
Kelly, we've talked about this, like, chronic optimists,
Yeah.
like,
Yes, yes.
the world's on fire and you're like, "Woohoo!"
It's like
Oh,
we keep going, how many times we fail and
Yeah.
we just keep getting back up because we're like,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah.
let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you have to play with it, and
Yeah.
I don't like being surrounded by crabby energy because I just don't know what to do with it, so I always
It's
uh
literally uncomfortable.
Yeah. It
yeah.
is. Yeah.
It really bugs me. Um, I guess this is, like, low-key skipping ahead to one of the lightning round questions, but I can't help myself. I
Do
mean,
it.
Kelly already knows I can't help myself. Like, with this astrology stuff, I really
Oh
can't help
yeah.
myself, I'm so sorry. But, like, as a Libra, I cannot with, disruption of the harmony around me, you know? So, like,
Yeah.
you gotta keep it in, like, this common harmony, keep it, like, glass half full, like, I mean, let's lift everyone up, you know?
Mhm.
I just can't. I
Mhm.
just can't. It makes me uncomfortable. It
Yeah.
really does.
It does.
Maybe I have to learn to not be so much like that sometimes,
Yeah.
to accept the crabby people and not let them get to me, but, that's another story for another day. Alright. Do we wanna do one more question and then move on to the lightning round?
Tell me, you tell
Let's
me.
do
Or
it.
what do you think? How are
I'll
we
do it. I'll do
time-wise?
it.
We're good?
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
I add another one?
Go for it, Kelly, you choose.
Okay. I think there's only one actually
Yeah?
left. So, what would you say to someone who's scared to make a change because it doesn't make sense to others? That's a good one.
Ooh, I would say I would, like, probably sit them down and be like, "Oh, come on, who cares about those other people?" Honestly, like, even though we all care about those other people,
Yeah.
and I know that, but I just think kinda like what we were saying earlier, if they respond weirdly, if they shun you, or if people get threatened so much with this type of thing, like, because if you're staying there shining your little light and living your best life, people can't stand it when they're, like, holding themselves down, and
Mhm.
it is a strange dynamic, but those are not your people, right? Like the people that are for you, like your friends and your, creative colleagues will be the people who see you doing your thing and they'll be like, "Wait a minute, that's so cool. I'm excited for them." Like maybe I'm a little bit intimidated or jealous or something, but like no, I feel empowered to take a step in my own path. Um and they'll feel a little more seen and validated in their weirdness. And I like to think a lot about like really weird like musicians that I enjoy, like David Bowie and Queen. And like if you think of like Bohemian Rhapsody as a song, it's like so weird, right? But everybody in the world
Literally.
loves it because
Mhm.
it's super weird and we are all super weird, and it just
Yeah.
makes us feel like, you know, like that's okay. Not to say that I'm as great as these wonderful musicians, but like that's something I'm trying to embrace, just like, putting my more of my like own
Yeah.
like vulnerability out there and
Yeah.
just being more me. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, like I said earlier, sometimes I'll put something out there and I'm like, well, this is maybe embarrassing, or I don't know, this is kind of a mess. Who knows? But then that's supposed for people seem
Yeah.
to respond
Yeah.
to it. And it's just this really nice little cycle of validation where like the
Mhm.
more me I am, the more other people see me, and then the more they feel like being themselves. And then I want to like, lift them up too. So
Yeah.
there's something kind of cool about that. But yeah, so to anybody who's out there listening, like, what do I do? Can I pivot?
Mhm.
Like, I would say totally do it. Do you, because we need you more than you know. Like the
Yeah.
things that each of us do and contribute, like it can have a literally life-changing impact. Like my college professor who handed me that book, like, maybe he was worried that he could be judged or something, but no, it literally changed my life. And so even like a piece of writing or a podcast episode or any type of creative work, or even just like a kind word to a stranger on the
Literally.
internet, like can actually change people's lives. So
Yeah. That's
let's
true.
let's do it.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Be your own weird. Embrace that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What was it? I think it's an Oscar Wilde quote, where it's like, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken," or
Ah,
something like
yes.
Yes.
that. If it's not Oscar Wilde, I apologize. My memory is not always acute, so
Sounds right.
I think it's someone said it and it
Yeah.
was well said.
And it's a good one.
Okay, so it's time for the lightning round. Dum, 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 dum. How should we do this, Kelly? Should we just do skip? You ask one, I ask one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You want to take the lead?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm nervous.
Oh God, no. Please don't. Please don't.
Okay. There is no time pressure, but
No.
you don't have to overthink it. It's
No,
kind
it's
of
Okay.
just
just
like what
really
comes, right? All right. So here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, question 1. What's the most used app on your phone?
Ooh. Google Docs. Google
Oh,
Docs, big time.
interesting.
Like that's my notebook. It all goes in
Okay.
the Google Docs.
makes sense.
Google Docs,
Nice.
girl.
All right. Which era would you time travel to and thrive in?
Oh my
Ooh.
gosh. I don't know if I would thrive, but I would love to go to like the late 1700s, early 1800s,
Mm.
like just for the fashion, for nothing else but the fashion.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Pasta or rice?
Pasta. That's easy.
Yeah. Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl, big time.
Mm.
Don't get me up before like 7:30.
Same.
Yeah. I get up at 6.
Ugh,
Oh my
Always.
gosh, Kelly. You go
so
Yeah.
for
But like
early.
when it's 7, I'm like, ooh, it's getting quite late now.
Oh
No,
my god,
actively still
no.
asleep.
Okay. Think before you do or do before you think?
Ooh, do before I think.
Aha.
Totally.
Love it. Okay, this one is actually for Maria, to
Yeah,
be
this one's
honest.
always for me. As
She
I
just wants
said,
to know.
I
So
always
what's
want to
your
know everyone's
yeah.
astrology.
What's your sign?
I am a Pisces. However, I don't think I'm a very good Pisces because I get the sense it's like you're all selfless and like calm and serene. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm confrontational and a little chaotic. So, it's like you never think about yourself. I'm like, no, I think about myself all the time.
That's so funny.
So I'm sure
You
I've
know,
got a rising sun or moon in there that aligns it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you got it. This is the only reason I asked is like I love finding like patterns and everything. And
Yes.
I'm super curious about how because obviously like your sun sign only says one thing, right? But I'm always curious because I always find like especially with multi-passionates who like are always changing and really
Mhm.
comfortable with change. I'm sure they got to have something in air or fire because I don't think water and earth like to change all the time
Yeah.
so much. So I'm like always curious to see like the composition. But what's really funny is that you're our second guest and you're our second Pisces.
Yes.
So we like Pisces
Yes.
over here. What can we say?
I'm sure there's other bad Pisces out there
Oh
like
no, but
me.
that's not bad. That's not bad. That's good. That's good. Okay, last question. Last thing you pivoted on, big or small?
Ooh. I mean, this morning I like changed my outfit.
Okay,
Oh,
fair game, fair
does
game.
that count?
Yes,
That
yes,
super
it does.
counts, yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's my answer.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our lightning round done
Yeah.
and all of our questions done.
Yeah.
So we'll open the floor to you just one last time in case you want to. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, you
Selfless.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's it
selfless
called?
promotion.
What do we call it? The shameless self promotion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh,
Shameless
yeah.
self promotion moment.
Yes.
Go for it. Tell us where we
Yes.
can find you, where
Yeah.
we can find stuff, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so come and find me on Substack. My newsletter is called Multifaceted, and the link is jessbarker.substack.com. So there you'll find more of this chaos if you enjoyed it. Come and find me. And I will also be in the comments on the Everything podcast, hyping up all the future guests.
Awesome. And will they find all your other creative projects as well on the newsletter?
No, but I do have a website, which is more of like a portfolio website. So if anybody's curious about like my jewelry line that I did or the type of marketing writing I do, I also have taught art workshops in the past, and I'm hoping to get
Awesome.
more into doing that kind of thing. So that's on my other website, which is jessica-barker.com.
Awesome.
So send all the fun gigs my way.
Yes, exactly. Questions, gigs, all the things.
Yes, yeah, all that good stuff. But
Amazing.
All right. Thank you
Well,
so much for coming on our podcast. It was like a very, very interesting conversation.
yes, thank you so much. It was amazing. And we hope that it inspires all of you listening. If you have questions or comments or, oh
Yeah.
my
Or
God, I
reviews,
relate moments,
a review on there if you like
a
listening to us.
review. Just
5
send
stars.
everything our way because we, as we, I think, made very clear in this conversation, are always looking for our people. So
Yes.
join us,
Yes.
our people.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you
so much,
so much.
Maria and Kelly, for having me. It's been so great to be here. And I will be tuning in for all the future episodes because I'm excited to meet more of our folks who are out there.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we will see you all next month.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.